right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We got David Stephen Patterson. If you don't know who he is, you've been Rip Van Winkling under a rock. This guy has been killing it for years. Recruiter extraordinaire, trainer extraordinaire, focuses super heavily on biz dev, sales, marketing, generating revenue. David, if we could, I'd love to start off with kind of what your journey's been, how you've gotten started and what you're focused on now.
Gosh, well, first off, you are not wrong. You're correct on all those counts. And but they do say that humility is my best quality.
Agreed.
I was just a little more humble, I'd be perfect, but whatever. Anyway, for those who don't know me, David Stephen Patterson, my name, people call me DSP. That kind of started off as a joke a few years ago and it just stuck. But the quick summary, I have been in the executive search business, staffing for about 24, 25 years, search for about 20 years. I've been independent. So I started my search firm, my first firm in 2004. And then went through a big crash and, lots of drama, yada, 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 lost the firm, restarted it. And from then built that up. Now I'm a digital marketer. Still run a firm to this day. I'm one of the few who actually does both simultaneously. Let's see. So I run the digital marketer, the digital headhunter, excuse me. And we help search firm owners and independents scale up their sales and marketing and create basically seamless sales and marketing ecosystems and actually entire systems. And I also operate the Kinetic Group, and we are an SAP focused search firm. And thirdly, I'm also part of the Sanford Rose Associates Network, which puts us on the top 10 list of retained search firms in North America. So I certainly have been there and done that. And and that's about that, I suppose.
Yeah. I love it. Let's dive in. So let's try to give them some context really quick. So let's start with the nuts and bolts of it. So the search firm you run, one is SAP focused. The other one, the digital headhunter. What are you guys focused on, recruiting wise for that firm?
No, it's SAP.
SAP. Okay.
I started doing SAP about that when I started my first firm in 2004. And and for that, it's going to be analyst, developer, all the way through senior leadership, VP, even like CTO occasionally. But in all full disclosure, right? I got burnt out of recruiting a few years ago. So I've hired people to run that business, and I'm growing it with them. And they are an internal client of the digital headhunter. So when I go out and do my marketing out there into the ether, for me, I can bring people in as a client for the digital headhunter, train them or write marketing systems for them, or they want to come work for me in the Kinetic Group. We can talk about that too. So lots of options.
Yeah. What are you most focused on now? I mean, you've done so much, you've been in it so long. What do you think, your expertise, your interest is in? Is it really, marketing, sales, and revenue generation for your firm and for other firms? Is that kind of, what your main focus is, that you're most, kind of passionate about?
Yeah, primarily. I'll be honest with you. I fell ass backwards into staffing and recruiting. What most recruiters do. Nowadays people go to school for recruiting, which is weird. But for us folks from my generation, recruiters are kind of like the land of misfit toys. We didn't belong anywhere else, and so we ended up doing this, and which is really true. And so, but I got burnt out on recruiting, to be quite candid. So I decided, midlife crisis, I suppose, instead of growing a ponytail and getting an earring, I decided to go into digital marketing, try something new, and train people how to, market in the world of recruiting, because recruiters are very poor marketers. And so now I'm kind of in a situation where I focus my efforts on the digital marketing. I've got guys that are focused on building my search firm, and I get to test out all my stuff with them, which is really cool, which is why a lot of my work is very unique, because I'm not a digital marketer that's never placed a candidate. And I'm not a trainer that was a recruiter 20 years ago. I'm in the business right now doing it. And so that gives me a bit of a unique insight. But I will say my passion is definitely the marketing side of it and sales and the training, because I've placed so many developers over the years. At a certain point, if I got to place another goddamn developer, I don't know what I'll do to myself. And so
Yeah,
for me,
let's
the
let's
opportunity to do the other thing is fantastic.
let's talk about that, because that's something that's affected me too, man. You know, like eventually I turned myself into a robot in a machine that was just making placements, you know. So how long did it take you to get burned out?
Oh man, depends on what decade. 'Cause I got burnt out in 2008, 2009, and then that big recession happened, and I
Hmm.
lost a 12-person firm there. Then I restarted because it's the only thing I knew how to do, and then I probably got burnt out 2016. Yeah, 16. And then I
Hmm.
started doing the training thing 2017 because I want to try something new, and set my knowledge and try a new industry. And that's what this has led to what I do now.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
one of the things, like in kind of pulling apart your story, one of the things I see is um, pick a part of the business that you really like. If you're
Mm-hmm.
starting to get burned out on recruiting, you know, look at the training aspect, you know, look at the candidate experience aspect, look at the technology aspect, look at the, you know, marketing aspect, and find something else that is akin to it that you can put your time and effort into. And then something else that you've done that's really smart, David, is you don't have to do all the placements on your own. Just
No.
freaking hire people, get them in there, you know, train them well. You know, you've earned enough of your stripes if you've, because I'm the same way, where I'm like, you know, I've done sales recruiting for so long, and you know, I love it. I love talking to salespeople, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you get to a point where you've done, you know, 15, 20,000 interviews, you know, and you're just like, I can't ask these same 5 questions one more time. So, yeah, to pivot it back to you, because, you know, but anyways,
Yeah,
being
thanks
burned
for
out.
talking about yourself,
Yeah,
Todd.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
short
Yeah.
plug, I am also imperfect.
well, no,
Okay, so let's.
I will say this as well, that real quick, if you don't mind me cutting in, but I will say, when it comes to burnout, one thing that was really interesting is that it led me to just not giving an AF. I think that's what the kids say nowadays. That's the hip new lingo, but not caring what people thought. So if you look at some of my older professional pictures, I'm, you know, suited up, tie, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so the more I decided to. The crazy thing was, I could never get a leadership search to save my life. I was the commodity. I was Smile and Dollar, and you know, I would do contingency work, and so I started to experiment. I started to do things that I wasn't trained on, to try to get leadership searches engaged and retained. And interestingly enough, I started to show my own personality. I started to not care if someone heard me say the F word, not care if someone saw my sleeve, you know,
Mhm.
not care if someone saw me without a collar, growing facial hair, started saying different things, started being a little more visceral and a little more polarizing. And the interesting thing about it was, doing that, it gave me the confidence to do it even more. And I noticed that if I had a strong sales game behind it, it didn't affect my business. In fact, it helped, because it separated me out from the armies of vanilla recruiters. There's a lot
Right.
of
Right.
them.
In their
All say the same
suited up, and it became like you being you. So is this something you used
thing.
as you pivoted into marketing? Like that you really started to be more authentic in your voice and who you are in just your way of being?
Yeah, and also allow me to be more in terms of sales and marketing. You have to be. I mean, you have to sell well. If you sell poorly, then being aggressive is just a bad move. But if you understand this, the buyer's journey, if you understand the psychology of the buyer, if you understand what triggers you can hit and what you can say, what you can't say, you know, what I found is that you know, being kind of true to yourself and authentic. I kind of really hate that word sometimes, authentic, because everybody uses it. You know, it's like finding your chakras or some shit. But but I will say is that by doing that more, if you could back it up with a quality service that owner has and a very good understanding of sales and marketing, you can go pretty far with it. You know, it's the people um, that do so kind of blindly, you know, because you know, that's where it can fall flat. You know what I mean? So I qualify that with, you have to really up your game in a lot of other areas so people will take you seriously. That's one of the big things. Other people will take you seriously.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. And I agree completely. So let's pivot to this. A lot of the people that are listening right now, they're relatively new. You know, they've either done recruiting for a year or two and they want to go off on their own and launch their own, or they're coming in fresh and they want to get started. You've done so many different flavors of biz dev and marketing and sales. So if you were talking to someone junior, where would you have them start? I mean, there's so many different tools available for people to do. You know, there's cold email, there's cold call, there's handwritten letters, there's drop off, there's SEO, there's content, there's da 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 da.
Mhm.
Thoughts? I mean, you've done so much of it that I'm curious what you still see working and being effective.
So all I have to say about that is I'm gonna vent. Hopefully you don't mind, but it's just what I do. So I want to tell you, don't be seduced by the sexy, by the sirens, that are saying, LinkedIn automation and SEO, your website, and all this fancy stuff. So what's going to happen is it does a few things. One, you get analysis paralysis, right? You have so many tools. I don't know how to put them all together, and then you don't go out and start. You don't go on your own. Not if you want to tell my story how I started. It's really crazy, but that said, when it comes to what you should do when you start in terms of getting out there, obviously sales marketing is 100% number one. What you have to get down. Recruiting is easy. You give your average recruiter an assignment, tell them go call this VP of operations in San Diego and try to sell her your services. They're going to have a hard time with that. They're not going to be able to bust past objections, but you give that recruiter a great job, with equity and, the pay's 20% above, industry standard. They can't wait to call and move past the objections. Why? Because they have something in hand. So you need to master, for one, what are you offering? To figure out what your audience wants, like what pains they have, get a good offer together, a good solution, and really get your sales game down. That is the number one thing you do. Now, regardless of now this is where the sexy comes in, right? You got to be careful about it. LinkedIn automation, email automation, and all these different tools and ads. And I am a big believer in ads, LinkedIn automation, and tools and all that. Like I do a lot of that. However, I will use smoke signals if it gets the job done. Whatever gets the message in front of the prospect, which, not to overtake this, but I will say this on a little side note. I've got a Facebook group with close to 9,000 recruiters. In there, I see all the time. I see people that will say, they'll complain about all the automation stuff. And you're like, you got to just cold call. And others will say, and trainers will say the same thing, cold calls are dead. And I'm just like, oh, it's such a non-argument.
Mm-hmm.
A cold call is just a way to get a message in front of a prospect. And if it works to do that, great. Same as the email, LinkedIn, an advertisement, again, a smoke signal. Like if I'm knocking on their bedroom door and I'm being, creep looking in, as long as I get my message in front, that's all that really matters. All the other stuff is just window dressing. So I think for any newbie coming in, before you get involved trying to figure out your distribution channels, figure out your core message, figure out your solution, and get it in front of as many people as you can and start selling it. And the more you do that, the more you'll get a really good idea of what the market will respond to, and the more you can make modifications, iterate, and keep moving. That's probably, I would say, the number one thing you do before we get into any of those other fancy toys.
So let's talk about core messaging. How do you figure that out? Like, how do you kind of hone in on what is my core message?
Okay, so I would say if you're going to a new market or you're new, you have to realize that there's what's called white noise, right? You got your core audience. Let's say CFOs in Cleveland or whatever, controllers. So you finance in Cleveland. You got to realize, okay, you come in and here's what typically happens. You go and you see, well, other recruiters say I'm a finance specialist. All right, well, I'm a finance specialist. This is my pitch. I'm a finance specialist. And I've got the best network in the world. It's all the same. Literally, it's white noise. Your prospects are sophisticated. They've heard it all before, and they don't care. And one ear out the other. So the key is go do a competitive analysis. Go to every recruiter that you can find in the area. Study them. What are they saying? How are they saying it? What are the claims? What are the solutions? They can contingency. And just because somebody says they do retain on the website doesn't mean they actually do retain. Most don't. Let's be real. So go look at all those things and really study them and figure out their messages and map. And then now, if you have that data, go out in the market, talk to leaders. Right now, it's easier than ever because they all want to network with recruiters. right? Because they're all worried about their jobs. And ask them, so ask them what some of their pains have been. Have you liked recruiters? What have been your issues? What do you like? What do you not like? And start getting an idea and start mapping this sort of map where here's what everybody else is saying, all this white noise. Here's what they kind of need. Do you see any gaps, right? That's how you figure out a message. Most recruiters, what they do is they sit in their ivory tower and think, well, I think this sounds good. I'm a specialist. Why would they want to use a specialist? I'm a specialist. I have a big network. Well, yeah, there's about 100 other recruiters that have the exact same thing that you do. So if you do that, you start to figure out your messaging. Now, the further further in, if in your conversations with your prospects, right, you're starting to talk to them about what bothers them, what they like, what they don't like. As you start hearing things like their vernacular and like what they say, start writing them down, right? Because that's going to go right into your scripts. As an example, in the SAP space, I heard this a few times from from SAP directors. They would say that they were tired of the Accentures of the world, of the boardrooms on the funny stuff, and that when these projects come down, they've got to implement. They don't have the resources. They can't find them on the open market, so they have to go back to Accenture and overpay for junior consultants that they have to train on their own. Your audience may hear that and think, I don't even know what that means. But you say that to an SAP director, they're like, oh yeah, I hate that. Oh my God, you're speaking their language. It says that, oh, he knows what's up. Not like, you can't find quality candidates. Well, yeah, of course. But you speak their language, their vernacular, and learn that by talking to your audience. And then your best stuff is what they tell you. And you're like, oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to use that next time. And you test it. But that's how you start really testing out your message. The problem that recruiters have is they don't do that. They get a script, they think it sounds kind of cool, and they just run with it. And then it's like a blunt hammer, and they never change the tool, they never adjust their approach, and then they wonder why they can't get clients.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, it reminds me, I wonder how you recommend that they get those messagings, right? So like there's a technique called the honeypot, right? Where you try to do that and you try to get it. And I know for me, when I was trying to tweak mine, I had a really close friend that was a CEO, and I was like, forward me every single recruiter email message, anything you get. And so I got, like 100 of them, and I was able to do it. Do you have any?
Most all the same, right?
All the same. Yeah. And it was super helpful. Like I was just like, holy shit, and I went back to my clients and I said, why me? And I had the exact same struggle of, even the CEOs were like, dude, Todd, you're saying the same thing every other recruiter's saying. Like, it sucks for you because when you say, hey, I'm going to really focus on you and make sure I solve your problem and not waste your time. And they're like, you actually do it. But the problem is you're white noise. Like everyone else is saying it. So I'm curious, when you're trying to help these, recruiters kind of figure it out, do you have a method for them to try to get those messages? I mean, what are your thoughts on that to try to kind of read the market a little bit to position?
Well, I would say, those are two different things. I mean, getting the data. Yeah, it's like what you said. I mean, talking to your prospects, talking to your market, your audience, et cetera. And hearing what they say, and not necessarily what they want to hear, because what they want to hear is not what they necessarily respond to. But having said that, if you go, one of the best ways I found to get the messaging first off is if you're setting up leadership calls, and if anyone's interested in how to do that, go to my YouTube channel. I have the whole like a 2-hour course on how to set up leadership calls. But when you're talking to a VP and you're talking to them about making a move, right? That's one of the best ways to kind of work at that level anyway. And you ask them, like for me, I've always been a big fan of pushing back on leaders, saying, just because I'm talking to VP doesn't mean they're a good candidate. It's like anyone else. I need to push back to find out what really makes them tick. Mm-hmm. Why are they the best? Why are they top of the class? And as they start pushing, they kind of open up a little bit. And I start asking, well, look, in order for you to make your move or to move up to a VP spot or CTO, it's all about the people you bring on, right? So talk to me about that. What's your hiring record look like? What are some of the biggest frustrations you've had? What are some of the lessons you've learned of hiring over the last few years? Do you use recruiters? Okay, what about that? What are your experiences? I kind of roll that into their qualification to me as a good potential candidate. That's how you get some really honest answers, right? You start talking about their leadership philosophy, their recruiting philosophy, et cetera. Now, so that's getting the message, right? Now, what about getting attention? Because the other component of this is, well, now you're gathering this data, right? What your market responds to. So now the question comes in, okay, how do I get someone to pay attention to me? Like, how do I get the appointment, right? I'm a big fan of the Sandler method, right? And in the Sandler system, they talk a lot about highlighting the pain, right? And I base in some parts a lot of my market philosophy on that in similar ways. Some ways I don't. But here's a good example. If a prospect were to tell you, hey, tell me why I should work with you. What most recruiters do is they break out the USB. Well, Bob, as you can see, we've got 20 years of high level experience. And in fact, you're a specialist for the biggest network. And if you see here, they do the dance, right? They do the dance and I'm like, did I get it? What do you think? And I hate that, right? As opposed to, think about it, no one really buys what you have. No one gives a shit. They only care about the pain that they have, and can you solve the pain, right? So it's like the example of sell me this. There's a pen. Sell me this pen, right? You always hear about that. Sell me this pen. Everybody talks about the features and benefits. Benefits don't even matter. I want to sell a pen if somebody has arm pain. So I want to ask the person asking me the question. Well, I don't know if you need this pen. I work with executives who typically owners of firms, they're growing, but they get really frustrated because they get this pain that radiates their arm because they use really cheap pens. And on top of that, when they pull out a big with a new client, it's embarrassing because it's the ink smudges. Their new client has a brand new Mont Blanc and they've got a big, and it really actually impacts the bottom line. I'm curious, does that resonate with you? If it is, I can talk to you about what I've got. It's to find out if they have the pain. If they don't have the pain, then don't sell them. So when in all my messaging, in the copy on the website, in the advertisements, right? I'm a big fan of adding value, and here's my USP and all that. But if someone were to say, "Why should I work with you?" I say, "Well, I don't know if you should." Mm-hmm. But here's what I do. I work with blank who are looking to blank, but they can't because they pain 1, pain 2, pain 3 impacts your ability to boom and make it really visceral. I said, look, I don't know if it resonates with you or not, but if it does, how about we dive in further, see if there's a fit, and if it's not a fit, I'll get you pointed in the right direction. But that's exactly what we do, because they don't care about they don't care about your service, they care about the pain that you solve. And so in your messaging, from your cold call to your voicemail to your everything, is all about, hey, Bob, here's what I solve. As opposed to talking about your 20 years of combined experience, because no one cares about that.
Yeah,
I'd say from like a high level, that's what you. What was that?
Yeah, no one gives a shit. Like it's about them. Yeah, I do I love that.
Now on a side note though, and I will say this, having said that, there is the flash in your badge piece of it. What I mean by that is, I talk a lot of crap about people saying I'm a finance specialist, I'm a blank, and who cares, right? But at the same time, if you make a bold claim, like I work with blank and I solve these big problems that I know most feel in the industry. Now, once you make the claim, you got to back it up, and that's when you flash your it's like flashing badge for your police officer, right? You're showing, hey, I'm legit, buddy. I know what I'm talking about. Listen to me. So that's then the years of experience, the firms, number of recruiters or the specialty. Then that comes into play. So it's not like I say don't say that, but don't lead with it because no one cares. You got to lead with that pain first, and what's the benefit to them. And you get their attention, then you kind of flash that badge a little bit and say, hey, I'm the person to listen to because I have authority, right? So I think recruiters kind of have it backwards in the way they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like credibility is a part of the sales process, but know when you need to use it. Like you start with the pain and what they need, and then eventually, they're gonna poke at the foundation to make sure you're legit, which is fine. I like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, sometimes too, I find even a cold call, right? I love cold calls. I'm a digital marketer, which is kind of weird, but um, you have a cold call or you get someone on a warm call, they reply, you get them on the phone. If you start right away and talk about them and the pains they feel, and I'm curious, do you ever see this? I tend to see that a lot, and make it again, make it visceral to where they're like, oh, guy's kind of a player. How does he know that? I think my thing froze. But I'll try to fix this as I talk.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
but I lost my track of that. But yeah, but if you try to if you talk a lot about them and ask really good questions, what a lot of times what you end up getting, which is really great, is you get the ability to, if you get their interest and say, and you see there's some real problems that they have, some real visceral problems, and you can really legit solve them, then it's simply a matter of just saying, look, I know I called you out of the blue. I know you don't have time now, but how about we schedule a time, next couple of days, you and I talk, we'll talk about what I do. You can pick my brain. If I can help you, great. If not, I'll get you pointed in the right direction. And, and what you do is you make a very good case for, this is a no pressure. I'm not even going to try to sell you. If I don't think you're a fit, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to point you somewhere else, but no matter what, you're going to get some value from talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you make it, so in essence, in your marketing and sales, highlight the pain. Here's what I saw. Oh, by the way, here's from my credibility. Hey, let's just talk and look. If I can't help you, hey, I want to point in the right direction. Ain't no pressure. I'm not going to try to sell you something you don't need. It makes it a very valuable proposition to talk to you. When for most recruiters, their proposition for getting the appointment is, hey, let's set a time to see if it makes sense to work together. And to the prospect, they say, well, why should I do that? I already got a recruiter. I got 5. I got 10. You want to meet me tomorrow? I don't need to be sold again. Like, I don't got time for that. So you have to think about, how do you get them hooked in? And it's about solving problems, no pressure, and doing it in a way that no one else does. And that's why I think my style is very kind of upfront and I'm very aggressive. But I think what happens is that I get that attention, and I say the right things, and I do a lot of pre-qualification. And if they're not a fit, then I just move on. If they are a fit, if they have a real problem, I just simply say, look, I can help you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can't, I know somebody who can. That's in essence how you get sales meetings.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is reminding me so much of sales, because like I've done that in the past, and it's like, it really is honing in what's their problem. What is it? What is that pain point? What is that costing them? And then moving them into like, I can help. Like, because sometimes it's so funny to be like, you just think like, oh yeah, no, I can help.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think we lose sight of that. You know what I mean? And that's where it comes in, where recruiters don't believe in their service. And so they fold to the first objection, or they never go for the engaged search, never go for a retainer. They're happy to get a contingency job order up on the board, not even exclusive, just because they're not really committed to selling what they have. They don't believe it. Like if you literally had if you had the cure to somebody's cancer, and you called them up and said, you got cancer. I've got the cure. And they said, I'm good. Would you take that answer? Or would you say, hold on a second. You need to listen to me here. Obviously do it with tact, but if you don't believe in what you do, and you're out for if you have commission breath, which stinks, then you're not going to move the sale forward. If you really truly believe in your heart of hearts, like, I love my audience, I love them so much, I know what what I do can help. If they have this pain, man, I need to do whatever I can to get the solution in front of them, because if I don't, and their leadership career stalled because I was a wussy, that is on me. And I think recruiters need to have that drive, that they need to get that solution in front of their prospects and do it the right way. And if they don't, it is on them. And I would say a good game play, by the way, and this is kind of weird, but we used to play this back in the day, where if you talk to a prospect or candidate, whoever, talk to a prospect, and they give you the brush off, the objection, and you don't move past it, or you don't try to close them or sell, you have to call them back and apologize for doing them the disservice of not trying to sell them. You institute that rule in your company, even for a day, as a game. you watch. And his funny thing is, and then you realize, oh, selling past the first objection is not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
You have some motivation behind you, you know? So anyway, we used to play that a few years ago. And it was always a bit of a fun game, but
Yeah, this made me think of something. What are the most common objections you see in recruiting?
it would be well, I'll say on the sales side.
Yeah.
The most common are the smoke screens. Like, so for example, if you're walking in the mall and the person in the middle of the walkway, they've got the lotions. I don't know, you young kids, we used to have these malls back before the pandemics. And but anyway, but back when malls were a thing, you get the lotion, right? Or they would just talk to you and you're like, I'm good, I'm good. You don't want to be sold. Now, maybe your hands are dry. Maybe you need what they got, but you just don't want to be sold, right? It's just smoke screen. Like a girl at a club getting hit on all night. What does she say? Got a boyfriend. I get boyfriend. She may not. She's
That's
just
literally my go-to excuse. I'm like, excuse me, boyfriend.
now, let me ask you a question. What if George Clooney walked up to you, or Brad Pitt, or fill in the blank, Denzel Washington?
I get it, a
whatever,
hot man.
like
I don't
The
have a
Rock.
boyfriend.
Exactly, right? Smoke screen. So so what I do is I take the positive K method of objection handling, right? Which is positive K, for those who don't know, the 80s rapper, when the girl would say, I got a man, and he says, well, how's that line go? What's your man got to do with me? And trying to hit at, see? And he continues, right? What he does is he knows that's a smoke screen objection. He moves past it, doesn't even let it bother him, and moves forward, right? In a cold call, if they tell you no need, or an email exchange, you email them and say no thanks, right? My process is pay it no mind, execute the program. They say no thanks, pretend I don't see the no, pretend there's a thanks, and I say, oh yeah, sure, my pleasure. Anyway, and I keep going with the next message. And more often than that, it turns right around. I don't need recruiters. Oh yeah, sure, no problem. I didn't think you did. Anyway, and keep going. Oftentimes, it's a smokescreen because they don't want to be bothered, and you haven't hooked them yet. Once you hook them, and let's say they give you the objection again, then it's a real objection. So I think the most common one is that smokescreen
Mm-hmm.
that they still want to be bothered. If you get past that, that's like half your work right there. Just get past it.
Right. Yeah. So
Pay
how,
no
what's
mind.
your move? So if you're going to move anyway, what's that look like? So here's the smoke screen, the deflection. To me, if you're on the phone with me, you want to be on the phone with me. So like, I'm already like, whatever you got, nah. But like in an email, you get an email and they're like, no, we're good. We don't use recruiters. How would you continue to engage them, is so you can see if there's another objection or if that's the real objection?
So here's what I do. So typically in an email, LinkedIn message, I'm not asking if they use recruiters, right? So what happens is I'm emailing them, trying to elicit a response, or maybe it's up a call or whatever. But I'm leaving it kind of open ended, and I'm trying to get some sort of response. And they respond with uh, uh, no recruiters, whatever, right? Imagine, right? Let's say I don't know, Paul. Paul is sitting at a bar, and Paul's married, happily married, sitting at a bar, sees a pretty girl next to him. He's waiting on his wife. He's be there in 5 minutes. They're supposed to meet. And he's like, oh, I'm a recruiter. I'm talkative. Turns to the girl and says, hey, how you doing? And she says, oh, I've got a boyfriend. And he says, oh, okay, sorry. I'm married. My wife's coming in like 5 minutes. I just wanted to pass the time. And she's like, oh, sorry, but I get hit on all the time. It's a smoke screen, right? If you were to instead, if you were to say, "Oh, sorry," then what does that tell her? Oh, yeah, he was just trying to hit on me, right? And so, how you react to it is, kind of tells them everything. And so, if I reach out and say, "Look, have you seen this in the market? Hey, Bob, I'm talking to directors all across Philadelphia, and I'm hearing, boom, boom, boom. I'm hearing paint one, paint two, paint three. I'm curious. Are you seeing that? What are you seeing? Happy to talk to you about it. And they respond back with no recruiters. Okay, yeah, that's a non sequitur, right? I didn't ask you if you use recruiters. Now, I won't say that to them. I'll just say, oh, yeah, sure, fair enough. Didn't think you did. Anyway, I keep going with my next message, or I ask them again. Oftentimes, it's just a weird psychological thing. Oftentimes, they reply back. It's almost kind of like they felt bad for being an a-hole to you.
Mm-hmm.
because you're nice back and you're just like, oh no, yeah, I figured, no big deal. Anyway, and you just keep going. It's why the no thanks, when they say no thanks, which I hate. Hey, what do you see out there in the market? No thanks. I just take the no out and I say, oh yeah, sure, yeah, my pleasure. Anyway, hope you're having a good one too. Anyway, and you keep going. It's just a little trick because like with the girl at the bar, she feels bad now. She feels almost obligated to talk to Paul, right? And so what I found is that you can turn those smoke your objections around amazingly well if you at least try. But
Yeah.
what most recruiters do is slinking back into their little hole, like the little cockroach recruiter that they are, because they don't believe in what they do. And so they say the no thanks, like, oh, okay, sorry. And they go to the next. And that's the impression that people have of recruiters. That's why they do that. No thanks, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. It's like that person in the middle of the mall. You say that. If instead you're walking in the mall, someone goes, oh, sir, and you're like, no thanks. And the guy says, oh yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to sell anything. Your shoelace actually is untied. It looks like you might trip over it. You're like, oh, yeah, sorry. And you feel bad. And you're like, oh, that's my bad. And it's that, and take that tack. Don't take what they say at face value. Just blow past it. Like it didn't even exist.
I really love this tip. I could just keep chatting with you, and I'm sure Todd could too. And I know you have a free gift for our audience, and I'd love for them to be able to access that because it's clearly just like you've got so much valuable content. So, what is the gift?
Thank you. Well, I wrote a guide to the Lighthouse Method a couple years ago. It's really put me on the map in terms of training and digital marketing. And I'm coming out with my newest version in within about a week from now. So by the time the show airs, it'll be available. So all I have to do is go to thedigitalheadhunter.com/lighthouse, and you can download yourself a copy. So it's not fluff. It's in essence, when it's all said and done, it'll probably be a good 60 to 80 pages of marketing, sales, scripts, templates, messaging sequences. I mean, so it's lots of good stuff in there. So your folks can go there and get a free download.
Yeah, we're going to make it even easier, y'all. Just scroll below, click the button, and it'll take you straight to David's free gift. And I know, right? Like, let's make it easy. I would love to know, what's the number one thing you want to leave our audience with?
Oh gosh, number one thing. So I would say, more than any technique, more than any messaging sequence, any iterative anything you ever give you, the one thing that will see you through is if you truly believe what you have can help somebody and it can help improve the lives and change the world. If you truly believe that, and most recruiters don't, it's a sad fact. They do not believe in what they do. That's why they fold all the time. If you believe in what you do, that'll make up for lack of technique in a lot of ways, right? I heard this Danny Kael quote years ago, so I'm stealing it, but I'll give him credit. What you lack in polish, make up for in passion. And passion beats polish any day. Polish and passion are great, but if you don't have the polish, make up for it in passion and believe in what you do down to your bones. You are on a mission to help. And if you're not, then you're in the wrong business. Right? Do something else. So that's the biggest advice I can give anybody, right? And in order to get to that point, you really got to work on your offer. You really got to work on the pains. Like, the more you talk to the leaders out there and you realize the shitstorm that they're in, and the more you and how they've gotten crap for recruiters, the more you start to believe, wait a minute, am I that crap? And you work on what you do, and the more you do that, the more you start believing in what you have to offer, right? So you got to do that work. But if you do that, that'll take you a long list.